as a thumbs up. So cool. So kind of the goal of this is the first time we're really sitting down to talk about sprints and sprint planning. We're going to go through the process of starting up, creating the board that we're going to be using, populate some of the stories, and then make a couple of decisions around like what sprints look like, how long sprints last, generally talk a little bit about estimates and what we think is realistic for those who are here and able to contribute. For those who don't make it, I'm sure that we can probably connect outside and Slack and pull things in from the backlog or create stuff on the backlog and pull them into the current sprint. But that's totally a solvable problem later on down the road, and let's not spend too much time worrying about that tonight. So previously we were talking about the vanilla GitHub project versus the beta version. Sounds like we're going to go with vanilla for like a Kanban style board, and we decide we want to try out a beta project, we can, but we can do that a little bit later. Right. So first things first, let's go ahead and get everything set up for everybody. What I'll go ahead and do is I will share my screen. And then let's go ahead and hide this. We're just going to go ahead and get the project started. And then once we've got the project started and everyone's added to it, we'll start populating stories. I have some and another in Jira that I can go ahead and copy over, and then we can go from there. So we're just going to go with we can update the description later. Does anyone have any preferences on which template we want to use? I would assume
the automated with reviews would probably be the best.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Visibility, public or private? I personally recommend public just because it is going to be an open source project, but if we decide that we don't want that visible to folks, does anyone have any thoughts on the matter?
I mean, we're not probably public. I mean, I don't think there's any reason for it to be private. Right? I don't.
Yeah, I personally don't see there being a reason for private. I just wanted to give folks like input. I don't know if anyone felt strongly about like, let's start private and make it public later, or I don't know.
I'm totally fine with leaving it public.
Cool. And then for linked repositories, we're going to make this. We're probably going to change the name of this repo, but for now, that's the repo that we have in the Code Devils organization for this. I don't think that there's anything else I need to throw in there. Just want to make it public. Got it. Cool. Awesome. And then because I didn't wear I'm expecting like a, let's go ahead and move that away. There we go.
So yeah, you can, if you want, you can delete the default issue. It just shows you how to use it. So now any issue will automatically be put on the board, and well, yeah, you've seen it before.
Right. So
but as soon as you assign it to someone, it'll add it to in progress and all that.
Cool. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's do one thing first, because I actually want people to have access to this. This is a slightly different. Maybe it's under settings. It's just like, okay, yeah. I'm not super familiar with everyone's GitHub username. We would have done this already. We would have added people to the team, and that's how we would have managed it before. But I guess Tyler, what's your
I'm
username?
putting it in chat
Sure.
because, yeah.
Such a cool guy. All right. Okay. So Tyler's been invited. Jay, do you have a GitHub username?
Yeah, I just put it in the chat. You can see it.
Ah, right on. Sorry, I'm just behind on seeing that. I don't like see a notification when, but yeah, cool. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. And then I think I saw Sid throw something in there as well. So let me pull chat back up. Sorry, I have a bit of a cough, so I'm trying not to blow up everyone's blow out everyone's ears. Oh, I need to change that as well. All right, so we're gonna add, and then so right. We determine at some point later that someone needs admin access. We can go ahead and do that like on a one-off basis as needed, but right access should be sufficient, I think. And then let's see. So then what we can do is we're going to go ahead and duplicate this tab, and then let me just go away. And then I believe I need to also add you guys to the actual repository as well. I'm trying to.
It's always fun remembering a password.
I type this in so infrequently. Give me just a second. Actually, really, well, I shouldn't be surprised that it is showing up. Why that it's asking for a password, because I mean you are talking about like making modifications to
Yeah.
access controls. At the same time, it's still frustrating.
That's why I just have a two-factor key.
I have that as well, but I just don't remember what the, like when I push stuff to GitHub, it doesn't.
You don't have GPG signing?
Probably not.
Oh. I
That's
sign my
probably
commits,
bad.
but that's a little overkill.
The primary reason why I still throw things, well, that's not true. The crap. Okay, so I thought that was going to be easy to go ahead and use. It's not. That's fine. probably should have done this ahead of the meeting. Interesting. Oh, helps if I do that. Yeah. Right. We're going to start with right. Everyone gets right, and then we'll expand that as needed. At the very least, though, that should allow folks to create issues, and that's the primary thing that we want.
Yeah, I think even read can be create issues, but write allows you to push.
Right, and everyone's pretty much gonna, what's going on?
What happened? Yep, that's me. Yeah, you can just click on the right role, I think. Just select it, maybe.
Oh,
I don't
interesting.
understand why it's defaulting to admin.
Because I believe it's because you added us as an owner,
No.
right? Because if we look at there's no project yet.
Maybe add me and then change it to right. Can you do that, or it's not possible? I'm confused if that's not possible, or is that possible to change forms?
Because the base role for this repository is admin or something. Because if you look at the top, up there, above a little bit,
It's funny. Oh, okay.
base role is admin. So
Yeah.
every code devil member has admin. That seems a little broken.
That is, and I was not the one who set this up.
I don't think that's right. Yeah, that doesn't seem right.
No. Which
You can
one?
The right, just above maintain, I think. Yeah, the right row.
Right, okay. I'm just trying to change the default.
I think it should be, is there a way to set predefined roles? Interesting. Yeah, I've got no idea.
All right, well, Jay, just don't blow it up.
Yeah, you can just change it, I think.
I can look into this.
Yeah, you can
a little
just
bit later.
I think admin and just change it, I think.
Organization based roles. Are you an admin?
I don't know why is that doing that to
CodeDevil?
me, just
I bet
because Tyler got the permission, right?
I think it's just because it's a code devil thing. Because this is a subgroup within code devils, right?
It is. So
yeah, okay, so it probably inherits.
Jay, are you an admin on the Code Devils organization in GitHub for one of the other projects?
Nope. I just joined it like 5 minutes ago.
That's hilarious. Okay. We'll figure this out. I don't no worries, Lee. So we'll go ahead and we'll add you too. Okay, so taking oh, this is hilarious. Oh man. Okay.
Is that just doing that to me?
It's just you. It's just you.
What?
It must be something related to.
I just got invited, like I just got invited and I joined it, and I'm like, what is happening with this?
Are you a part of DevilBot?
Nope, I'm not a part. I'm just part of this project. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I'm completely blown away. Totally fine.
Wait. There's two people in MC service admin. There should only be one, right?
So I know who the second person is. I thought I knew who the second.
Yeah, if you
Okay.
click on the role, it'll tell you who's in it. So it's okay. Wait, that's not right, is it?
Yeah, it is.
It is?
She needs to be removed. She had to drop out. I think. So she was a project coordinator, project and events coordinator.
Oh, okay.
And so that's why she was a part of that, because part of her duties were kind of like
Okay.
to
Okay. So
do these kinds of things. This needs to be adjusted. We need a MineQbe admin and a MineQbe contributors group. And so most everyone would be in the contributors group, and this makes this problem a lot easier to manage. Okay, so I'm just losing track of. Lee, do you mind throwing your GitHub information into the chat so we can add you?
yeah, sure.
Maybe I think try to remove me and add me again. Maybe something, I don't know what has happened. Why do I have the admin role? I'm confused.
So organization-based role is admin, read, triage, write, maintain are unavailable. We'll figure that out after this call. For whatever reason, it sounds like you have higher permissions than I do, and code level GitHub organization, but I don't know. I'm not saying it's your fault, man. That's what it looks like. So, okay. So as far as I can tell, everyone, yeah. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm 5 in this one. Okay, so everyone should have access. There should be an invite in your email. You'll go ahead and need to click on that in order to actually do things. But you should have access to both the GitHub repo as well as the projects. Before we start drilling down into the individual stories and start divvying up some of that, I'd like to talk through some conceptual things. So how many people here and say either like in the chat, or I think there's a raise hand feature or something like that, or just yell. Who here is familiar with like what agile is and what a sprint is?
Not me.
I am.
So I've got 2 yeses, 1 no, which means we're going to talk a little bit about what it looks like anyway. Actually, you know what? Since there exists more than 0 is a precondition for this, we'll go ahead and start through it. So basically, in a nutshell, without getting into the details, agile is an approach in order to organize how we go about planning and doing the work involved in making progress in the software project. There are different ways of doing agile. Scrum is popular, but there are others, and I'm forgetting the names of those at the moment, but it's actually covered in 216 and 316. As a TA in 316, I should actually remember the names of those, but I don't. And so I don't. Anyway, the concept is that instead of doing a whole bunch of planning up front and spending sometimes like a year, 2 years, 3 years, just building requirements and identifying edge cases and building out tasks for the work and diagrams, and everything is literally like design up front and then implement. for a lot of reasons, that's expensive and takes longer to actually do development. Agile is more iterative in nature. So the concept is you have a general idea of what you want to do with some basic core requirements that are less likely to change. And then in the course of these sprints, you start completing work that contributes to those base requirements so you can get something that works at least in front of the customer earlier on. And this allows you to identify problems with the base requirements. Maybe the customer identified things that they didn't actually really want. That's super common. Maybe the market changes, and so the requirements change along with that. Regulatory changes, all these kinds of things, right? So the concept is, rather than doing everything up front and then years down the road, like finishing the project and then having to do a whole lot of rework after the fact as a part of QA, there's this constant like, hey, we're going to assign ourselves a little bit of work, we're going to finish it, and then we're going to check and see what things look like. And then we're going to plan and commit to doing a little bit more work. And then we're going to finish it, and then we're going to check, and then we're just going to keep iterating through this. So for Agile, we have these things called sprints. It's basically like we have a start date and an end date. For every single time there's an iteration. So sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, typically the length of these sprints stays the same. I would argue some teams do 1-week sprints. Some teams do month-long sprints. I personally have a preference at, well, maybe I'm going to bias everybody now, but I have a preference at 2 weeks.
I think, yeah.
Pretty normal.
Like
The
it's,
team- Yeah, the team might join me do 2-week sprints.
right. And
Seems
so
fair.
2-week sprints are what we do in ASU in the courses. 2-week sprints are what I've done professionally with Starbucks Technology. Does anyone agree or disagree about doing 2-week long sprints?
I think 2-week sprints are good.
I think from your description, I think, yeah, the 2-week sprints are great.
Sweet. Okay. Getting things actually ready to ship in 1 week is hard. And so I can totally see teams at Amazon doing 1-week sprints. I don't feel comfortable with doing 1-week sprints, though. That's crazy. Very impressive when people can do it. Okay,
Well,
so
the scope of issues is probably also a lot smaller if you're doing a week sprint.
it is, yes, but at the same time, it's yes. Anyway, I don't want to go down that's true. It's true, but okay. So we're going to do 2-week sprints. We've got a project. After this meeting, I'm going to go ahead and connect about fixing permissions and getting a contributors team created for projects in the repo. So now let's go ahead and let's talk about what we want to pull in. So is anyone still working on getting access to the GitHub project? Does anyone need help finding the GitHub project?
No project for the repository has been made yet, but
What?
that's yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
empty.
because you made it you didn't create a project for the you didn't create a project for the project. You created one for Code Devils project. So if you go into the repo and then there's a like projects tab inside the repo, that's where you would do it.
All right, let's go ahead and let's do that then. So I go to settings and then
And then it's if you scroll up, projects right next to between actions and wiki, right there. So like you would call like a project example would be like sprint 1. You know, that's
so the project needs to be in this repo.
well, okay. So you can have projects at different scales, right? You can have one for the organization that's an organization-wide project. You can have ones limited to repositories, and that would be, you know, just limited to the repository. Generally how I've done that is it's by the campaign doesn't have an H in it. It's just, yeah. the way I've done it with GitHub projects like that is I've done it by sprint. So I'll create a new project for each sprint. But we can do it however we want. That's just how I've done it in the past.
It's gonna be hilarious if I have to reinvite everybody. Shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't have to, because we're all on the repo. So anyone who has access to the repo can see the project.
Yeah, I see it. It's there.
Why didn't it ask me for a template? I probably did this wrong.
Yeah, it asks you, but I think you selected none. Because I thought, yeah, I think it asked.
You won't be able to edit it after. So yeah, you didn't select it. You selected none. If you hit, you can add. Yeah.
Ah, okay. That's crazy that you can't change the.
You might be able to. I just.
You just don't know how. That's totally fine. Not even worried about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's delete that. All right, so we've got a whole.
So yeah, what you would do is you would attach the issue to the project. So like if you go into one of the issues, oh, you close them all. If you
They were all testing ones.
right, so you can attach it to a project on the side right there. So yeah, and then it would, yep. And then if you look on the project, to do, and then as soon as you sign someone, like say you assign me to it, like in the issue, yep, and then you sign, say like me. Yep. Then you close the issue. It should move it directly to in progress. Ah, there we go. Okay, so we might have to. Oh boy.
I'm sure we can work that out. If it's not automated and we need to automate it later on, that's totally fine. And there's some details here. I'll go ahead and leave these in here. So so I guess Tyler.
I just added that label.
Right on. Okay.
So like it. Oh, come on, open the issue. There we go. There we go.
Because the label was added?
No. I normally what happens, it does it once you actually push use like a branch and do some stuff like that, or like push a PR, it'll move to in progress. But I just manually moved it to in progress with some stuff. But yeah, it works. Basically, you have to make a PR or like linking the issue. It'll do some stuff with it. I can write up some like documentation like how it works if you want that.
Yeah, that's totally fine. We can actually, so as a contributor, well, let's, I would like GitHub project documentation so that we can better manage issues. And so for those not familiar with writing stories, this is usually what that looks like. So as some role, as a contributor, as a developer, as a customer, as a maintainer, as an investor. So like as an investor, I would like profitability report so that I can better break down controllable and uncontrollable costs. Might be an issue label, or so like for instance, this as a contributor, I would like GitHub project documentation so that we can better manage issues. That kind of summarizes the role, what we would like to do, and why. Then there's 4 pieces. I think it's 4. There's stakeholders, there's assumptions, there's description, there's acceptance criteria, and there's a definition of done. So really 5. Now, definition of done doesn't have to be included. This can generally be summarized by like quality standards that we agree to as far as like what we're looking for and what completed work looks like. These can be standards that across the board apply. 80% or 90% testing coverage, comments, documentation, all that kind of stuff. We're not going to worry about that right now. Stakeholders, for now, to be simple, that's just going to be us.
And this can all be converted into a template. I
Right.
can probably.
Which is another story. We can put a tab in that for that as well. Assumptions in this case is going to be none. Assumptions can be like, we have something that we want to do, right? So as a contributor, I want to visualize, not velocity, but the other word. I would like visualizations of sprint burn down so that we can track progress throughout the sprint. Could be a story. And then an assumption there is that you could link to another story that basically builds out the client for connecting to wherever we're storing your stories, so we can pull the metadata and create a report from it. So the assumption is like something that needs to happen before work can actually start on this. In this case, assumption is non-descriptions. We would like to better understand and share knowledge about GitHub project automation. This will include a document in GitHub that outlines some of the GitHub project automations. And a good story would have more. But in the interest of time, it's 8:40. We've been doing a lot of like initial stuff, and that's fine. We're just going to leave this kind of short. Acceptance criteria, markdown, document, committed, GitHub. And then actually in another example of like definition of done, which we're not going to do. So this could be like documentation, approved in PR process by 2 approvers. And realistically, a lot of these things would end up being like, they would just always show up. So that's why typically you don't include definition of done in the actual story itself. I'm not saying we need to have 2 reviewers. I'm just saying some people do require that.
Tomorrow I'll write the documentation for that, and I'll also set up the CI stuff that we would need for that.
So, right. So in the interest of time, actually, we're going to do the stubs and we're going to get them into the issues. And then is there a way to do story points in this or no?
What do you mean by story points? Like,
Right. Okay. Totally meant to talk about this
Like-
before. I am so sorry. I'm all over the place. I meant to have a little bit more like done on the back end so we could focus more on the meat and potatoes. That didn't happen. I apologize. So in some teams that do agile, they use points estimates to represent the overall level of effort a particular story requires. There's a number of different ways to represent this. Some teams use hours, some teams use the Fibonacci sequence. Some teams use t-shirt sizes, right? So I don't know of a tool that represents that very well, but maybe it would just be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A 5 is like an XXL, and a 1 is like a super small. But anyway, the 2 that I've worked with in the past, points represent number of hours. So 2 points would be 2 hours to complete. 8 points would be 8 hours. 40 points would be like a full business work week. I don't like that because I think that we generally do a bad job estimating things anyway. So estimates should probably be a little bit rougher around the edges to begin with. This is my personal opinion. Folks are willing to disagree. The other option is Fibonacci sequence. So like a 1 is generally like no more than 2 hours. 1 is the smallest amount of work that you can represent for a story. A 2 is just a little bit more than that. A 3 is kind of like start to finish. If that's the only thing I did, it would take me about a day to do. A 5 is probably around 2 to 3 days. 8 represents either a full week or half of a sprint in terms of someone's capacity. I'm sorry, no. An 8 represents a full week. A 5 represents somewhere between 2 days and that. And then typically like a 21 would be like, that's the only thing that you're working on and you're completely overcapacitated. Can't take on anything else. There's probably more that we need to talk about with that. I'm just curious, is there a way to do points in this?
yes, you can do it as a label. So if you click on labels, you can create a new label, just like, yep, all the way at the bottom. Like you can type in the label and just say create a new label to name. No, okay, so like,
Right, no, I understand it. If I type in like test label.
and then you can create a, yep, and
Right, so I could also do like points 1 or
Right.
points 2, 3, 5, 8, etc. Okay, that's fine. Let's skip this for now, though. Well, no. I think it's important.
there's a way to do it in code, which might be the more better declarative way to do it.
As like an attribute in this.
I'm also creating the issue template right now.
So you know what? So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm just going to submit this issue as. Is there any other acceptance criteria we need for this? That's awesome, by the way. Thank you. Why should I be dictating the format? I don't want to do that. I just document submitted in GitHub. and merged to
Oopsies.
dev.
Note. Who
Okay.
was-
This is taking. So at this point, I think it makes, what was the other thing
So-
you were working on?
Declarative labels.
No, the automations or the
Oh, yeah.
card for the template. Is that what it was?
The-
Or
The template I'm doing right now.
okay.
Sorry, what's it? Choose. Drawer.
I'm gonna actually leave that on the table right now. We can create a card for it retroactively to represent it, and that would be good. I think it would probably be a good idea to just represent some of the bodies of work with like just the titles for now, because I don't want to take up everyone's time and I don't want to waste everyone's time. So there's a couple of pieces to this. So as a developer, we can have multiple people work on this, and we'll have this as a spike. I would like to understand, I would like to document how Minecraft Bedrock dedicated service works so that I can better understand the work.
How would you like me to describe assumptions to someone who wanted to create a brand new issue without knowing what assumptions were?
Preconditions or prerequisite.
Alrighty. I don't think I spelled prerequisites right. But yeah, that. What would you like the template called? Like a feature request or
Sure.
feature request is good.
Yeah, because most of the stories are going to represent feature requests. We could use the same template for like documentation stories as well, or we could have a separate template for that.
Okay, because we can have more than one template as well. We can have one for like bug reports as well. Actually, I will just make that one.
Okay.
Bug report.
So we have one of these stories. The previous issue that I created was essentially like, hey, we'd like to understand how the Bedrock dedicated server works, so that we can better understand the application domain. Essentially, like, how does the server work? What are the command line options? How does that integrate with managing things like allow lists, configuration? Where does that fall into? How does that relate to things like upgrading the server to a new version? What are version dependencies? All that kind of stuff. So it's pretty much like a, hey, let me find out more information. This particular card is wrapping the running server behind something that we can use code to manipulate.
Okay. If you actually copy and paste that and open, like copy the title you've made, you will now see some templates. So if you just like cancel that and like make a new issue. So if you hit, yeah, get started on that. Ta-da. And then you can just like fill in the details.
Like it, this stuff doesn't show up in the actual like view, right?
Well, generally you replace that with whatever you needed. Oh, I spelled description wrong. Whoopsies. Without
All good.
like, so say you submitted a new issue, you can edit an issue after you submit it, by the way. I will actually fix that right now.
Cool. Okay. I like that.
So like actually you can even look at the top. If you click on preview, you can preview a thing. So that's what it'll look like. Oops, I missed the colon there.
So most of the time, stakeholders are going to be us.
For the sake of a template, yeah.
Actually, we could probably pre-fill that with MineQbe contributors. So as a developer, I would like to wrap the Minecraft Bedrock dedicated server in code so I can manage it programmatically. What this means is that basically like the server runs the command line and it's not defined as it's not defined as a system service. This is basically the wrapper that would ensure that we have some kind of, so that we have code that starts the server, stops the server, and does things on the server, so that we can then manipulate it for doing other things. This is a core component that would be an assumption for other stories as well. In the interest of time, I'm not going to fill out the description. After this meeting, I will fill out the description. Does anyone have any questions on this? I feel like I'm just monologuing and I feel bad. Okay. So then there's a couple of other things. So okay, developer, I would like a RESTful API to manage the running Minecraft Bedrock dedicated server. So that I can manage the running. So this actually is talking about having an API. Does anyone know what a RESTful API is, or does anyone here not know what a RESTful API is?
I know what a REST API is, but
Okay, so essentially it's just like for those who have used like GitHub's API, there's basically like there's another URL that you can hit, and it's got things like /project, /issues, and you can send GET requests to get resources, post requests to either to create new resources, put requests to create new resources or overwrite existing resources. That one's up for debate a little bit, but patch is, anyway, so the concept is kind of like, so that way you can send an HTTP request with an auth mechanism of some kind so that you can tell like the Minecraft Bedrock dedicated server to allow list someone, remove someone from the allow list, change the chunk size configuration, all that kind of stuff. So I guess we're kind of at time. It might make sense for us to create another meeting to talk about this a little bit more. And of course, we're not going.
I've also
to-
just added some declarative labels. There's only a couple, but we can make more.
Okay. In order for issues to go into views or in progress, they have to be assigned to someone, correct?
They have to be assigned someone, and there also has to be a pull request linking that issue, I believe.
Okay, so that gets into another process. Generally speaking, for stuff that people want to work on that involves code, one of the first things to do is create the branch associated with it, and then create a new pull request. The pull request will update as additional code is committed. But that allows other folks to take a look at like, hey, this is a pull request that's in progress. I'm sure Tyler added a label for ready to be reviewed or not ready to be reviewed. If
Actually,
not,
I have not, because that's if you make a pull request, it will not let you merge it until it's reviewed by someone.
that's
so I don't
fair. The ready for
I could.
review and not ready for review is there for
Yeah, I
folks
can-
to be like,
I-
I'm still working on it. Don't look at my bad stuff and judge me. Or, hey, I need someone to review this.
Okay. Color. Need to figure out what. Oh, I also updated the template to add in that thing. Xcode. Um.
Okay. So we're in the process of creating issues. And I don't know if people have a hard stop at 7 o'clock. We probably need to have another meeting sometime mid this week, or we can continue working through this until everyone has one or two stories that they'd like to work on this sprint. Does anyone have a hard stop at 6 o'clock? Or I'm sorry, 7 o'clock?
I've actually got to go, but
Okay.
Yeah, I have to go. But you guys can keep going.
That's totally fine, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate your contributions to this. If you want, we can connect later on after this to kind of talk about like what next steps as far as like work looks like. I know a number of people are itching to actually like get started and like work with some code and stuff like that. So hopefully at some point soon we'll be able to do that. Does anyone else have a hard stop?
Nope.
Yeah. Okay. So Sid does. Oh, I missed these comments.
So I believe.
That's what this is about.
There we go. Yeah, I should have made that branch. Okay. And then I look in projects. Look at this one.
Okay, so Sid's got to go. Tyler's got to go. And does anyone else
Yep.
have to go?
Okay. David, I will touch base with you sometime soon. I'm gonna work on that GitHub the documentation, and I will probably send you something about it tomorrow. But I've got to run. Have
Sure.
a good night, the rest of you guys. Alrighty.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Or Jay and Lee, do we want to stick around and talk a little bit more about issues that can like represent the work in the first part of the sprint, or do you guys want to call it a night? It's up to you.
Stick around.
Cool. Cool. Okay. So currently what we have represented over here is so previously in the Slack chat we were talking about a demo of the Minecraft server, and so what that would involve is essentially like what it should involve is kind of like pulling it down from the Microsoft download page, getting it started, starting up a client, illustrating some of the command lines and permissions and other types of actions, showing where the configuration files are. Hopefully I'm not losing anyone because apparently my internet is a potato. I apologize if I get cut off, but so essentially just kind of like creating a video and throwing it on YouTube to essentially show like, hey, this is what it looks like. There's a couple of things that
And how it works.
yeah. It addresses some of the concerns with backups and things like that. I'll go ahead and update this with a little bit more of a description. We talked about what a RESTful API is, but basically like this essentially
It's kind of like a framework, right?
I don't know that I would call it a framework. I would say that you can use frameworks to make an API, but I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, I'm not sure
I'm
if
probably
you're
thinking of the wrong term.
No, you might be using the right term in a different context that I'm not familiar with. That's fine. Frequently for APIs, you see REST APIs most and some GraphQL APIs for like newer modern stuff. There's also something called RPC styled APIs, which are less about resources and more about actions. To be perfectly honest, an API for this kind of a service would be like a RESTful RPC-ish API. It's not a true blue. You'd never be able to identify like a good version 3.0 REST API for this. And check it. So I guess there is a framework for REST. So that works, yeah. Because there's qualifications for like levels of being levels of restfulness. So yeah, it is a framework, just not in. When I think of a framework, I usually think of like React.
Like all the JavaScript ones, right?
But anyway, okay. And so that essentially what that does means that you can open up port 443 to manage actions on the server as opposed to opening up SSH, right? So currently the way that you would manage doing things is you would SSH into the server. You would enter in a command to start the server. You would enter in additional commands while the server was running, and then you would terminate it from the same session. This would allow you to essentially like abstract all of that behind like users, like get all users to see like a get call to a user's endpoint and see all of the users, and then like a post call on user's endpoint to add a new user that has access. Okay, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. There's, I'm sorry, when I say beating a dead horse, I mean, I'm saying the same thing multiple times, which, sorry. Do we have any questions about this one?
Nope.
Silence is golden. I thought we talked about this one. As a developer, I would like to wrap the Minecraft Bedrock dedicated server in code so I can manage it programmatically. So I actually have some prototype code for this one. Essentially, the way that it's currently set up, the server doesn't really play nice to starting it, throwing it in background, and then popping it up back in foreground again, which means that it would be kind of nice to have a either an interpreted process or a binary that's running as a process that kind of like controls the life cycle of the running server binary and can do things and basically like invoke commands to that running server binary. The prototype code that I have for this is in Go because this allows you to do things like handle the running server in its own thread and then use other threads to respond to API calls. So essentially this would feed into whatever we have available with this. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. There's an alternative way if someone can actually like figure out a way to make the Bedrock specific version of this install as a service on the server, then you could potentially just start it up and then just send like one-off commands to the operating system to get it to do what you wanted to do.
Okay.
I
I
had
have
trouble
a bit
making
of
that.
experience with sorry.
Okay. If you have experience with that and you want to explore that, that'd be great. I couldn't make it work, and so that's why like I took the other approach. But yeah, does this make sense, or do you have questions here?
Oh, that makes sense.
Okay. This is just a generic like a discovery type of this, and honestly we could have this separate or as a part of this where like this is one of the outputs of this story, but it's essentially we'd like a little bit more documentation about how the Bedrock dedicated server works. And outlining kind of what we're actually doing right now, outlining future stories, identifying stuff that has to actually get created, as well as kind of documenting how the current ecosystem integrates with itself, like how the client talks to the server, how a maintainer would interact with the running server, and some of those options there.
Okay, so it's kind of like a comprehensive guide for the project.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, kind of. I'm not sure I would quite phrase it like that. I think it is. The output of this would be a collection of documents that essentially, like someone who's new to contribute on the project could use to get up to speed very, very quickly on what the actual system looks like. Not necessarily like the system that we're currently working on now, because we would need to be generating separate documentation for that, and they could reference that, but just to understand the problem space a little bit better.
Okay.
So this is what Tyler was talking about, and that's essentially just like GitHub project documentation. So basically, like, we understand a little bit more about like what's available to us to simplify the workflow of like creating issues and stuff like that. Is there anything like already called out here that like folks would like to kind of like try to commit to, or do we want to try and like get some of the work assigned out tonight? Or do we want to push this back to the middle of next this upcoming week, get everything finalized and figure out what we're pulling into the sprint?
That might be a good idea. Just to get a better grasp on things.
The second option, is that what you were saying? Okay.
Yeah, the like the pushing later.
Okay, that's totally fine. Do you have any input on additional stories that we would need to add?
I was thinking about like, we're gonna have to choose an operating system to use for the back end, right?
Yeah. So that brings up another one. Because we're talking about doing this in Kubernetes, it means it's going to need to run as a container. So what we can actually do is we can start a new story. So as a DevOps engineer, I don't know if necessarily as an engineer, I would like to containerize MineQbe Bedrock dedicated service so that it can run. This would actually kind of address that. So part of this is already defined for us, right? The Linux binary that's distributed, or the Linux package, I should say, that's distributed for this is based off of running in Ubuntu. Now you can actually trim that down and make it a little bit more lightweight by using Debian plus some additional libraries. The challenge with that is that it might break on new versions. So a Ubuntu distribution might make sense. I've tried using some more lightweight ones, and it just doesn't start. So which distribution we end up using is kind of up to us, but part of it's already decided for us. It's got to be split off of Debian, and it's somewhere between Debian and Ubuntu. However, what we could do with this is kind of like, this is where we would go ahead and get the Docker file created for setting up the dependencies. We could potentially introduce like a builder pattern where we have a stage where it like compiles anything else that we've already done, and then throws the compiled stuff into the actual production container. So you would have a builder and then like a runner stage in that, and then you know, basically just install everything and then start it out. So this, the assumption here would be that some of the other stories have been completed, at the very least something that actually, well, not necessarily. It could, in theory, just start up the binary by itself.
Makes sense.
And that might be useful for folks to kind of like, hey, I want to start it. So Docker run MineQbe. There are a number of examples of some basic containers that run MineQbe Bedrock dedicated server. I don't like them for a variety of reasons, but that doesn't mean that they don't have good stuff to reference. And when I've been playing around with it, I've referenced those as well. I don't like a 300 line bash script that seems very fragile. So I want to avoid stuff like that. But there is some stuff out there to take a look at. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and leave it like this. There's description really would need to get filled out, and acceptance criteria would really need to get filled out. I think we can probably be pretty loose about what acceptance criteria and description looks like for people in the beginning, but we'll probably want to get firmer after we get a couple of sprints under our belt. So, okay. Did you have any other input or?
That was the main thing I had thought of.
Jay's been super quiet. Did Jay have any input? I don't know if Jay had to step away. Okay. On that note, I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to leave these stories where they are. We're going to gauge something for Wednesday or Thursday. Due to my work schedule, I won't be able to do anything during the middle of the day, but we can get something either earlier on in the day or later in the evening outside of like the 9 to 5 Pacific Standard Time zone.
Okay, that works because I work during the week too, so I won't be available until later.
Yep, no, that sounds good. Okay. Cool. On that note, I'll go ahead and I'll stop the recording. I'll get this posted. So folks who are not able to attend can go ahead and check it out. Not sure why I don't see the record.